You get your stimmy yet?
I got mine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Direct deposit?
Yeah. It's gone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's the South Park meme?
Literally. And it's gone.
You bought 1/12 of a Bitcoin?
I got it, and then rent was due, and my phone bill, and groceries.
Next time we go to Ted's house, he's got a PS5.
This is a Millennium Falcon. You're Han Solo.
I used to be. Han Solo, the rebellion general?
No, the smuggler.
Wasn't he a war hero?
Force Awakens, Force Awakens. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Soup. I am Bo Oliver, joined here today by Aaron and Teddy. Don't crack your fingers. And we are back to continue our Star Wars Revisited series with the sequel trilogy, starting with Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And boy, did The Force Awaken after this movie. It's been just non-stop Star Wars discourse. And we thought this was going to be a pleasant time, right? I still remember 2012 when it was announced that Disney bought Star Wars. This is what I've wanted my entire life, playing with the action figures. What the hell happened after Episode 6? Where did Luke go? First line of the crawl, Luke has vanished. But I still remember the feeling in that theater, man, the pre-movie buzz in that theater. I don't think you can ever duplicate it. For me personally.
How excited are you for tonight?
At a 1 out of 10, I'm a 10. 10 being the highest. Like, this is insane.
Because this franchise has meant so much to me as a kid, and now as an adult. And now I actually don't think it means anything. But
well, now it doesn't. But
this movie will always hold a special place in my heart, regardless of what's happened since.
It wasn't even that this movie was bad, though, because this was a good movie. So you left that theater happy.
Yeah, a lot of the discourse around this movie had to do with just kind of replaying A New Hope. Very derivative, and it is in a lot of aspects, but I still enjoyed it immensely. And it sucks because when I first saw it, I loved it, and even when I watch it now, I kind of view it in a vacuum where I kind of like, oh, even though I know what's going to happen next, I kind of still enjoy it for what this film is. And there are some aspects of this film that we'll talk about that I like what they did to grow upon it in the other films, but I just couldn't help think, like, Palpatine's just out there.
Like,
just
how?
chilling.
And it feels like such a refreshing reintroduction to the universe. Like, yeah, we're going to get Han Solo, Luke, and Leia, but a lot of those things are done. I mean, the first line of the movie is, this will begin to make things right. So Palpatine is probably the last person on your mind going into this movie. And when you talk about how it's derivative of A New Hope, I always make this point that we've had a lot of remakes in the past, and a lot of them have sucked. Maybe this is just one of the better remakes of all time. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I don't love those original Star Wars movies. This was the first good one. And I think that's why it just hit so hard. Like you said, leaving the theater, you were just so impressed and so re-engaged with this franchise.
But when you watch this movie, people say it's just like Episode 4. But we get the prequels, and people say that they want it to be just like 4, 5, and 6. And that they didn't like them. And then we get this one, and people are saying that it's just like Episode 4 again. So are you guys happy with the way it came out, or would you guys rather them not be like Episode 4 then?
I think it's more of just like...
Because I enjoyed it, and I liked it.
Yeah, it hits a lot of the same beats. Big weapon, gotta destroy. It's gonna destroy planets, but
Orphan scavenger with a robot that has plans that the good guys need.
Yeah, so I think it's where I view it. It's like you get an introduction of fresh new characters, and you still have some of your old favorites, but they're not too in the spotlight. They're there, but if you're not gonna make a direct sequel trilogy to that, and your plan is to have a story based around new characters, then I would actually prefer not to have too much of the other characters, which I think they did a good job of. We got a little of them, but it wasn't their story, so to speak. So
our old characters, I feel like definitely took the back seat, and I think they played like a perfect role in this movie. They didn't do too much of them.
Well, what's so interesting about two of the new characters in this movie, Rey and Kylo Ren, is that a lot of people made the argument that they kind of share the protagonist role. That even though Ren is your prototypical bad guy, they really do focus on how he got to this point and which direction is he going to go. Is he going to go with the light, or is he going to stay on the path of the dark? And that's really the best part about this movie is the characters. I mean, it does feel like Star Wars. That's always the test. The use of practical effects and CGI. It's one of the best looking Star Wars movies.
100%.
Cinematography by Dan Mindel. But it's the new characters that's what you grabbed hold of. I think the first 30 to 35 minutes is the best Star Wars has ever been. It has such a strong start, and that's why I think it starts to lose steam towards the middle. But that beginning, man, when Kylo Ren stops that blaster bolt, I was like, here we go.
Dude,
we're back in it.
I think that's when I texted you and said, I forgot how good this movie was.
Yeah, you really do. because there's so many great sequences in that opening 30 minutes.
Yeah, there is a lot of the flying sequences to get the Falcon back, and even some of the sequences when the Resistance first fights the First Order on that planet, where you see the return of Poe and you have that shot of Finn looking up at everything, and it really just felt like the old trilogy in the sense of how it looked, how some of the sequences played out, and especially with like the lightsaber fights.
Right, and I think with Star Wars is you need to be clever with your narrative, but you need to introduce new characters, weird characters, creatures, and your action set pieces have to be memorable, and that's what this movie did so well. Whether if it's Poe when he takes out the 9 TIE fighters, or when Rey and Finn are evading the TIE fighters and she flips the ship, cuts the engine, gets Finn that perfect shot. It's like they're kids experiencing Star Wars for the first time, and it felt like the first time for us too.
Even with the cheesy, I wouldn't say cheesy, but even the comedic timing, I think, was funny too.
Oh, I think it's got some of the best comedy of all the Star Wars movies.
Definitely the best of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I didn't like it in The Last Jedi, and I don't even remember laughing in the Rise. Babu Frick.
Well, definitely we laughed when they mentioned that Palpatine was back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Like I was cracking up
groaned.
when BB-8 did that lighter flick.
Yeah, that's iconic. The
and
lighter
then
flick.
when
well, the back and forth, man, when Finn's just pleading with him to
it,
tell her
help
the
me.
location of the base, please.
when Rey did the Force trick on the Stormtrooper,
Daniel Craig.
like that was funny, man.
Yeah, it was.
And she says, "Drop your blaster," and I'll drop my blaster.
There's a lot of situational comedy. They're kind of playing off the moments, similar to Episode 4, and I think they really did a good job of that. But Rey, it's obviously, I would say it's still her movie more so than Kylo Ren's.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts about this movie is that kind of 5 to 6 minute introduction to Rey. You get everything you need to know about that character just through the visuals.
Yeah, definitely my favorite part of the sequel trilogy, which begins in this movie, is the relationship and the insight into Rey and Kylo and how they interact together in their journey going forward. And I think, and even Finn too, all three of them had just great introductions, and they were great characters in this film.
Well, Kylo Ren's introduction, going back and forth with Max von Sydow, just the voice right there. You're intimidated by this character. He's got the great new theme. He's got the weird ship and the new mask.
His voice sounds great.
yeah, the voice is, that robotic. And then when he takes off the mask, it's Adam Driver with perfectly shampooed hair. What the hell is going on here? So right there, that's new to Star Wars. Very similar to Anakin, but in the way that they presented him, that he's a character that has already gone bad, and he possibly can reel it back and get back on the good side.
Well, I think Kylo was the strongest part in this movie in terms of the villain. We have Darth Vader, but if you want to compare them, you can't compare Darth Vader to Kylo because Darth Vader has 6 movies. So I think Kylo's introduction to this universe was perfect.
Right, and what they did differently here is Vader has 10 to 12 minutes of screen time. Kylo's got 40.
Yeah.
So that's where people make the argument, hey, it's as much as his stories as it is Rey's. And it starts off as Vader Jr., but yeah, you get more, he's more complex.
They make you feel him, feel for him.
When you compare him to just Vader in the sequel trilogy, he's definitely way more complex. And you can make the case that this is just better Anakin. For a lot of people, I think it is. Because his performances continue to get better throughout these movies. Even in Rise of Skywalker, where I think they messed up the ending of his arc, he's still very good.
I think Kylo is the best part of the sequels.
Yeah, he's definitely my favorite character, and I like, a lot of people were turned off, I guess, about how like moody he was and kind of the emotion he showed, but I think that's what makes his character so great.
Yeah, it was different.
They're showing his internal struggle and because he really doesn't know what he wants to be. He thinks he wants to be bad, but he still has a struggle to be good.
Well, when he first takes off the mask, Rey has the same reaction as everyone else. I'm afraid of this guy. That's
You're
just Adam
just
Driver.
a kid like I am.
Hey, I just saw you on Girls on Sunday night. What the hell are you doing here, kid? Yeah, no, he's easily, I think you can make the case that if he's not the best Star Wars character, he's the best Star Wars character in these 3 movies, without a doubt.
Acting-wise, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can have your problems with the sequel trilogy overall, but I'm just glad that we got this new character. And the other supporting characters, Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron, John Boyega as Finn, I think this may be their strongest movie. And we don't get a lot of Poe in this film, but this was before they really figured out who these characters were going to be. Actually, I don't think they ever did. That's the problem.
I wish
the
they
introduction
knew.
is so fun, but they didn't know which one they wanted to make the new Han Solo.
I was just gonna say that. I wish they knew that they were gonna make Poe the new Han Solo.
And because Finn, well, what they did with Finn is they marketed it as he's going to be the Jedi, right? But then
Yeah.
they just went back to that in The Rise of Skywalker.
But did they though? Because if you look at the posters, I saw this on a tweet. Rey is in the middle of the poster.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought maybe it would be Rey, that they were doing this intentionally.
Yeah.
But I think Finn is delightful in this movie.
He is.
Like I said, with Rey and Finn, they're like kids experiencing Star Wars for the first time. I think it's more so even Finn. I mean, the facial expressions, the fear, the awe, the excitement throughout this film. I think it's a very funny performance, not only with the dialogue, but the way he's physically acting. And I think it's just a shame that they didn't. I mean, they dive into this character's mindset in this film.
Just going the way they went, using him as an ex-stormtrooper. That was a great insight on the stormtroopers that we never had before.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I wish they would have gotten more into that to see how he would kind of develop. In The Last Jedi, there's not much development there. And I think there is development here where he's seeing, okay, maybe sacrificing myself for a friend. That's kind of the lesson that he learns here, fighting for something bigger than himself. But then he kind of has to learn it again in The Last Jedi. So that's frustrating when you think about this character.
I think the strongest part of this movie, I mean, like we said, call it derivative, but I think it was an awesome kind of foundation for the rest of the trilogy. Obviously,
really
they went different ways, and certain artistic directions took it, many different ways, and it brought it back again. We all know how know how it happens.
Yeah.
Full U-turn.
But
It's like they knew where they wanted to go with
Yeah.
this movie.
But at the core,
100%.
like, even if, some aspects are, of the plot you don't really like, I think you had a great foundation with great characters and a mystery there. Who's Snoke? How did Maz get the lightsaber? That vision that Rey had. There is so much intrigue in this.
The mystery and the intrigue is all taken away in The Last Jedi. And I hate to talk about The Last Jedi, but I mean, we're going to get into that, but they did such a great job of setting up these kind of high fantasy concepts within the Star Wars universe. The Rey vision, we spent 2 summers trying to figure out what the fuck was happening in that vision. Turns out nothing.
Yeah.
Turns out we would never see those scenes play out in any such way. The Knights of Ren, what are they doing in that vision? They seem to be massacring people. Forget about it. So that's when you look at J.J. Abrams' Mr. Mystery Box. Some of these sequences feel like he was just throwing shit at the wall. Whereas when we watched it initially, we thought, where the hell is this story going? They're cooking something up here. Even Snoke, that's different from the original movie. We didn't see Palpatine in the flesh until episode 6, and we get giant fucking Snoke hologram.
Another thing too, Hux. I think that is great potential in this movie. They set him in. They kind of have that, that unsaid rivalry between him and Kylo. They exchange looks. He has that,
They even start out as kind of buddies. Like they're working together here.
Yeah, he has his Führer moment. And,
Yeah, he does give the Hitler Youth speech.
and he's an opposing figure who turns into a punchline in the next 2 movies. But this initial setup, it's like, could this be like a young Tarkin Vader type relationship? Because one of the best things about Tarkin is that Vader respects him in A New Hope in the beginning. He doesn't have any of these powers, but he's able to kind of keep him at bay.
Yeah,
I was interested to see what this dynamic was, and it was more just Kylo uses him as like just the punching bag.
Literally a punching line and a punching bag.
Yeah.
And what they got into with this movie, with their relationship, is Hux is telling him, don't let your personal feelings get in the way of the main mission. That could have been an interesting dynamic, where Kylo is slowly, gradually slipping back to the light, and then you have this General Hux who is becoming more power thirsty as the First Order grows in power and influence. That could have been interesting, but in the next movie, he's just a doofus. They really 180'd this character because he's not goofy at all. In the next movie, he's just an idiot. He just, I don't know. I don't know what happened to that character.
And another big thing with this one is obviously Han Solo. People have had problems with the way this character was portrayed in this movie. I didn't really have an initial problem with it, and I still don't. I think that it's natural for the character for him and Leia to go their separate ways, and I think it makes sense within what we know about these characters. And I kind of enjoyed, he kind of had to die because I don't think Harrison Ford wanted to play this character anymore. Even when he reunites with Leia, I think they're back and forth. It's like they're still connected. They still have that love there, but it's just evident from their interactions that they just couldn't be together.
You knew
They
it wasn't going to
drifted
work.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah, their family fell apart because of what happened with Kylo, and they even get into this in some of the books, that Han Solo is a man who he loves traveling. He's a vagabond. He's a man without a home.
Yeah.
So it wasn't surprising. His introduction, that's kind of where the movie does lose steam for me. The Ranth car, that sequence is, I remember in theater thinking, what the hell are we doing here? It doesn't move the story forward whatsoever, and I think there are a couple of scenes in this movie that you could have just cut.
Star Wars always has that, though. Like that one, 10 or 15 minutes where it's like, wait, why are we doing this?
But it was moving at such a nice pace before Han Solo shows up, and it's iconic. Chewie, we're home. But I didn't mind the portrayals, and even keeping Luke Skywalker completely out of the movie until the very end. That was controversial because that was the whole thing leading up to the movie. Where is Luke? What is Luke going to be doing? A lot of people wanted Luke to grab that lightsaber at the end.
I was going to say, speaking of mystery, like we were talking earlier, did you guys think for a second that Luke was going to grab that lightsaber when they got force grabbed?
In the moment, yeah, 100%.
Do you think they missed out on using Luke to come back right there, or did you guys like what they did with Luke?
I like what they did with Luke in this movie.
Me too.
Because the way that Han Solo describes it is that he walked away from everything and he went looking for the first Jedi Temple. So that makes you think, okay, he feels responsible, but he's also doing something with the Jedi, with the history of the Jedi, with the Force. What is he cooking up?
Why go to the temple?
And it turns out he was just whining.
Because if he was just whining, why say that he's going to the temple? Why not just keep him where he's at? Why even bring that in?
Right, they built it up as...
It makes you think, okay, so there's a story behind that. So what is it?
Yeah, it's
that's
just
that's episode 8. Let's get into that episode 8.
That's another iconic moment, her handing Luke the lightsaber, him taking off the hood.
But we
one of the best endings of any Star Wars movie.
We had that argument in Mando, in that Luke took over the show. I think if Luke comes back when he grabs the lightsaber, I think Luke takes over that movie.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that would just be so fan service at that point.
Yeah.
Because that fight, it needs to be Kylo Ren and Rey.
Yeah, and that's another point of contention with this movie is how the fight plays out. When I first saw it, I just figured classical storytelling, it would be the protagonist loses to the antagonist, and then she trains, and eventually she's able to overcome. Rocky loses the first fight, wins the second. But
rubber matches.
Yeah. But I think everything kind of surrounding it is very interesting too, with Kylo Ren killing his father, and shows just more of the confliction he has, where he thought it would send him further to the dark, but it just fucked him up even more.
Right.
Taking the bullet, being injured, having to fight Finn and then Rey, and just everything going on with that character. Him losing, and the rest of the way their relationship plays out, I actually like it more.
Yes,
and
I think so.
I think,
too.
Especially too with the grand scheme of things, when we see the next film, the First Order is, they lost their battle, but they have all the advantage.
Yeah, they've got the resistance on the run.
So it's kind of like this is more of a personal struggle between these two characters than the overarching struggle of everybody else and the universe. So.
And their fight here, it's inconsequential to the mission of destroying Starkiller Base. They're just fighting to fight. And I enjoy the idea of Kylo Ren having this kind of reflection of what he always wanted to be. He sees this in Ren. He sees this in Rey, this girl that's never been trained. And he kind of unintentionally unlocks her force powers during that interrogation scene. Yeah. So he's kind of created everything that he's wanted to be in this person that he's just met.
His overconfidence.
Right, yeah, the overconfidence, going back to he's not a Sith, but that is a common weakness.
Yeah.
So that fight, to me, it's more about the scenery. It's more about Rey grabbing the lightsaber for the first time. These are going to be the new kids leading the universe moving forward. So let them spar a couple rounds.
A great aspect in this movie, Finn can't fight him, so he loses easily. And
he got a little.
He got some tags in, but he can't stay on the ground though.
He got him on the shoulder.
And then if you think about it, Kylo is still training, so he's still, and Rey is a Force user, so maybe he can't defeat Rey like that. But
yeah, and another criticism of the movie was that Rey is overpowered. I think at this point it doesn't even fucking matter.
No,
who cares?
She's a Force user. I think she can at least fight as a Force user.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the idea of her powers being unintentionally unlocked by
because she was nice with her spear or whatever she has.
Yeah, she was. Piecing up those scavengers on Jakku.
Oh, so she has some battle. What's the word?
Experience?
Yeah, battle years.
I wanted to make a meme. It's Unkar Plut.
Battle experience is a better word. Because experience wasn't the word I wanted to use.
I want to make a meme of Unkar Plut as the guys from Pawn Shop. It's like 1/4 portion's the best I can do. Sorry.
Oh my God.
And even a character like Leia, I think that could be a criticism of this movie, is that there isn't enough Leia. But man, do I love her in the general role. Even when they're having that conversation in the beginning, like the general's been looking for this a long time. He's like, to me, she's royalty. Mm-hmm. Leia is always going to be the heart and soul of the Star Wars universe. Could have used a little bit more Leia in this film, but I think she's great. Carrie Fisher falls right back into the role, and all the vets kind of do. Mm-hmm. So do you think that there's any chance that... I'm convinced that Abrams always wanted to make Rey a Palpatine. And I think they hint at it when Snoke mentions "bring the girl to me." If what you say about this girl is true, that he kind of knows, okay, this is a girl that's gone missing, that we've been trying to locate her for a long time. And if there's some untrained Force user out there who's stronger than anyone Kylo's experienced, then it has to be her. Maybe that's just
I think that's
me
a
being
great
kind.
explanation for it. I don't think that's where
It's
they
a great,
were going.
great
I think
retcon, right?
Yeah, I think they used that, or maybe that's a way that they used it.
Well, even Snoke's theme is the Emperor's theme in this movie.
Dude, there's no way they were bringing back Palpatine, man. I cannot believe.
I think there are
That they even
things
did.
like the fighting style, and you brought up some similarities in the theme with Rey's theme and Palpatine's theme in your video. And there,
Link in the bio.
You're
There-
plugging it, right?
there are a lot of things though that you grabbed and were able to make a connection. Now, was that was that there? You know, but with a lot of theory videos,
You can't explain it, man.
You can
You
make
just can't.
you can make connections with a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think it was still very like if you hear Daisy Ridley talk, she thought
There was toying with like an Obi-Wan connection, and then it really went. There were like different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one.
there was an avenue for Kenobi, and so I think
Well,
there.
even getting Ewan McGregor to say, "These are your first steps."
Yeah.
Why?
So there are things
Why?
there.
Why is
where
he doing that?
I think that was an idea, and maybe he included some things, and if that's the route they wanted it to go, then you can make those connections. Just as if she was a Kenobi, you could probably look back at this movie and be like, oh, maybe this, maybe that.
Hello there.
Even if they had set up a plan from this movie for Palpatine, that would have been tough either way. It's hard to bring, especially after we just did the Return of the Jedi. He died.
Dude, the way he dies, how do you bring him back?
He got obliterated.
Even bringing it, like, I'm a guy that would want Mace Windu back, but I don't know how you would bring Mace Windu back after falling like that. It's like, how? I don't know how they do it.
The
It just makes
Force.
sense. Yeah, I guess.
Well, I think regardless of what happened in Episode 8 and Episode 9, you can still watch this movie, still enjoy it, still get that feeling of sitting in the theater and returning to the Star Wars universe. So overall, I still think it's the best movie of the sequel trilogy, and still a very enjoyable film, regardless of if it's Star Wars or not. All right, that does it for our review of The Force Awakens, and of course, we will be back for The Last Jedi, and I'm sure that will be fun and not contentious at all. Just nice, relaxing review.
I have something on my chest I want to get off. This whole review, you've been cutting me off. You cut me off, and you never retweet my polls, and it's really annoying because we're a channel, we're supposed to be a family, and you
The main
never
channel
retweet it.
already retweets
You're
the
doing
polls,
it right now.
so
You're
the
cutting
poll-
me off.
No,
You're
but
not
the
letting
poll-
me talk.
Like you're so
You're not
annoyed about
letting
the
me
fucking
talk.
polls. No one cares. Put the
Just
whole timeline.
retweet the poll, guy.
Polls.
Well, would you look at that? It's finally over. Hey guys, Bo Oliver here for one final send-off. Now, before I beg you guys to like and share this video, I'd like to thank our very special Patreon pledgers. We are very proud of the community we've been able to build here at NerdSoup, and it would not have been possible without our Patreon supporters. You guys are the true MVPs of this channel. Everything I've said, you keep the fridge full, you keep the lights on. There aren't enough words to thank you guys, but we'll do it anyway. Thank you. And we have a few videos coming up that have been suggested to us by Patreon pledgers. My Hero Academia, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and Full Metal Alchemist will be reviewed by Marissa and yours truly, and Castlevania, which will be reviewed by Marissa and Aaron. And if you'd like to consider donating to our Patreon page, you can visit patreon.com/nerdsoup and check out some of the rewards we offer to our listeners. And really, we'd like to thank everyone who takes the time out of their day to watch our videos. Patreon pledger or not, your support is what keeps us motivated to keep giving the world our opinions on movies and TV shows and video games and pop culture, even though no one asked for it. We're still here, we're still yapping, and we hope you continue to join us. I'm Bo Oliver, and I support this message.